Good afternoon, everyone, and welcome to our first On Track session for 2023. For those of you that might not be familiar, so On Track is the program topic stays the same throughout the entire calendar year, and that's decided by actually our members. So through some surveys and things we do towards the end of the year, we figure out, okay, what do we want to really dive deep into on different topics, but kind of all around that same theme. And this year it is employee and organizational development, kind of an HR focus, I would say. We want to call it something fancy and snazzy. So employee and organizational development is what we came up with. It is my pleasure today to have Rebecca Temple from the QTI group joining us. So we couple announcements as we get started. Please try to keep yourselves on mute. So that's that red slash through the microphone. Would love to see your beautiful smiling faces. So if you're able, you can take your turn your camera on so we can see you. And then we are going to try to make this as interactive as possible. So as questions come up, if Rebecca's mentioning something that you want to elaborate on or ask more questions, please feel free to put those in the chat and we will be asking those on your behalf. And then also leave time at the end for question and answer. So also want to acknowledge and thank our sponsor for today. Thank you to Upper Iowa University for sponsoring the program and helping us bring these professional development topics to our membership. So with that, you guys will also get an email from me afterwards that will include a copy of the slides as well as the recording. So you'll have that to share or reference again for your organization. As I said, joining us today is Rebecca Temple, the Vice President HR Consulting with the QTI Group. Rebecca leads QTI's team that specializes in total reward strategy, program design, and governance and administration best practices. Rebecca has more than a decade of consulting experience as well as experience in compensation and administration. So Rebecca, I'd love to turn this over to you.
Well, thank you, Kristen, and thank you to the Middleton Chamber for inviting me to be here with you this afternoon. I'm excited to present our thoughts on the topic of, is time for a compensation revolution? Our discussion today will begin with an opening to build our understanding of the trends that are affecting our workforce. We will then transition the bulk of our time into a discussion of what total rewards are, why we need to care about them, and how to maximize our investment in total rewards for the future. Lastly, we will have some closing comments before we open the floor to your questions. As Kristen said, though, if you have questions, you're welcome to use the chat feature, and we will try to address those throughout this session when possible. So compensation practices, as you may or may not know, have not seen a lot of innovative thinking. Why is this? Well, there are many reasons for this situation that we now see ourselves in. Organizations were focused for many decades and years on getting the basics right. Then there are the potential negative impacts that changes to total rewards or compensation can have on employee engagement. Compounding these, we have the volatile nature of the market and the economy. Now we find ourselves broadening the definition of compensation to encompass all that employers offer their employees. And this is commonly known as total rewards. And it's a term that has been gaining traction over the last several years. Well, there are many risks associated with implementing new compensation practices. Some organizations are willing to take this risk. And the common theme that we are finding is that offerings are more flexible and programs are more varied to cater to a more diverse workforce. So maybe it's time for us to force ourselves to think about total rewards a little differently. As Stephen Covey is famously known, if we keep doing what we're doing, we're going to keep getting what we're getting. So total rewards embrace everything that employees value in their employment relationship. It's a holistic approach to reward design and delivery that ensures all programs are aligned within the business. What total rewards help us bring together is the business strategy, the HR strategy, and employee preferences. So total rewards are much more than what we think about in terms of compensation or, what is my pay or my salary and benefits. Total rewards include everything that the organization provides its employees. And it's kind of a different way to think about it. And it's really an integral part of the organization and the people strategy. The new and emerging components of total rewards that we're beginning to think about, or we're shifting our focus on, are that work life and those development and career opportunities. A well-defined and innovative total reward strategy ensures that the total rewards become a driving force to accomplish an organization's goals. So to say that a lot has changed over the last century or even the last few decades would be a gross understatement. We are now in a globalized, digitized world where instant gratification and personalization are the norm rather than the exception. Then there was this little thing called the COVID-19 pandemic. The pandemic has touched every facet of our lives, including total rewards. There are 4 different areas in which total rewards have been challenged through our worldview, that challenge our worldview through the pandemic. We have inflation, remote work, retention and recruiting strategies, and innovation and overall total reward strategies. So first, let's think about how total rewards fit in our current environment. So we have inflation. Inflation, which soared at its fastest pace, I'm sure we're all aware, in more than 40 years, is wiping out the pay raises that people have been granted. Inflation closed out 2022 at 6.5%, as measured by the CPI, or the Consumer Price Index. The average person has lost purchasing power since their wages have fallen at a slower pace than prices have increased. Hourly wages have fallen 1.7% in the past year. And what we know is that our lower wage workers are impacted the most greatly. Second, we have COVID's impact on the business. So the COVID-19 pandemic has affected all sectors of our economy. Many businesses across the country, so their supply chains interrupted, demand for their products and services decline, shortages in supplies and inputs, and government mandated closures. On top of this, the federal government implemented programs designed to keep employees on their payrolls. Third, we have changes in the way people want to work. Work processes designed with the pre-pandemic environment in mind have changed. They're outdated, making it hard for employees to work effectively or adjust to the major changes. And then finally, employees now expect their jobs to bring a significant sense of purpose to their lives. Employers need to help meet this need or be prepared to lose talent, the companies that will. So a lot has changed in today's workforce. Let's take 2 perspectives to support this point. So first, we have the Great Resignation. 40 years ago, the average person followed a career path largely dictated by birth and education. Fast forward to today, successful careers are no longer determined by the right education, resume, age, gender, or background. A record number of employees are quit their jobs in 2021, leading to the Great Resignation, which continued into 2022. Second, we have an employment rate. The employment rate. During the Great Depression, the unemployment rate was 24.9%. Our current national average is 3.5%, which is a 50-year low. Needless to say, finding the right talent is the #1 HR challenge for most employers right now. After a brief hiatus in 2021, attracting the right talent repeated itself as the #1 HR challenge reported by employers in QTI's 2022 HR Trends Survey. The power now has shifted from employers to employees. Now employees must consider how to get employees who used to need to work to now who want to work for them. So we have a new era of workforce transformation that was accelerated by the COVID-19 pandemic. As organizations face acute challenges and very difficult choices, leaders also possess a rare opportunity to fully reimagine their total reward strategies. Long-term post-pandemic trends in total rewards, we believe, include the following: increasing focus on well-being support with a major emphasis on mental health, avoiding a culture of us versus them with the shift in workforce composition, moving away from a one-size-fits-all approach to benefits offerings that are more inclusive for your entire workforce, balancing cost savings measures with their impact on the organization's employer brand. And finally, harmonizing total rewards plans as organizations undergo more mergers and acquisitions. So let's reimagine the world of total rewards with a blank slate. How can we reinvent the world of total rewards based on our new workforce reality? How do we develop reward strategies and structures that move us from brick and mortar and 9 to 5 to working in your pajamas and being separated from your teams? How do we engage employees who have taken stock in what they value most and desire rewards? In other words, how do we factor in the worth it equation, which is defined as what people want from work and what they're willing to give in return? Employees want total rewards that prioritize their well-being and connect their passion to purpose. They desire flexibility and work-life balance. Organizations that offer rewards in these areas will have a leg up from their competition when recruiting new employees. So we think about the key to reimagining rewards is taking account of multiple perspectives to set the strategy. So by working backwards, you can actually assess and determine where you want to be. What is your end state? What outcomes do you want to achieve? Additionally, part of your assessment is testing your story at various angles. So from an inside out perspective, what is the organization known for in the external marketplace? What is the EVP or the employee value proposition? From inside out, review the talent you have in the organization. What do employees value? Look at what is important to them. Is pay important, work-life balance, culture, some combination? From a bottoms up, conduct perhaps what we call a conjoint analysis or motivation assessment. What do employees value more? Maybe less is more if you focus on the components that your workforce values most. Ask the question, are our programs affordable and sustainable? So on this slide, I have provided an overview of the total rewards program to illustrate 3 key concepts. So first, there's more to total rewards, as we've already talked about, than the tangible dollars. It includes all of the items that you see on this slide and more. This is not a holistic list. So we have base pay, short-term incentives or bonuses. That's, your sort of pay for performance that you may offer. Then we have benefits, careers, work life. The items on the left side of the screen are easier to put a tangible dollar on. The items on the right-hand side of the screen are those intangibles are working for the organization. So that includes things like leadership quality, culture, and development opportunities. These intangibles are harder to quantify and assign a value to. However, they can also be fairly cost-effective for the organization if you can implement them correctly. Yet they are incredibly important to employees. And this brings me to my second point. In order to attract and retain employees, it's important to be competitive in all the items on the left. However, it is the intangibles that, if done effectively, can really differentiate you from your talent competitors and help you win the war for talent. The third point I want to share with you on this slide is that it's important to consider your total rewards program, as just mentioned, from both the employer and employee perspective. And I've outlined that for you today. You can see, for example, that employees equate pay with their value today, benefits with their financial security, careers with their future value, and work life with their quality of life. Now, which one is more important? Well, that's a trick question. They're all important. So the best designed total rewards programs attract, they motivate, and they keep the right talent. It shapes your culture and your organization, and it balances the need of the business with what people actually want. With this in mind, there are 8 total rewards strategy best practices that we recommend to begin to put it all together. So start with the organization strategy, mission, vision, purpose, and values. Assess the employee motivators and values. Inventory all your total rewards elements. What are you offering? Be choiceful. You can't be everything to everyone, though I know we want to try. You want to define the role of each element. Again, is it my value today, my financial security, my future value, or my work life? set your competitive positioning. Is it important that we are competitive at market competitive for all elements of compensation, or can we be more or less competitive for some, and then others we want to be a little different? Evaluate your market to assess your position, and then finally regularly evaluate and adapt as needed. So I know we want it to sort of be one and done, but these things are constantly needing evaluation and assessment. So it sounds straightforward, right? But our business environment is ever shifting. Our economy is volatile. What people need and want from their work is evolving. Career paths are more dynamic than ever, and new jobs and roles are constantly emerging. A well-defined total reward strategy ensures that rewards become a driving force to accomplish organizational goals. All rewards, both direct and indirect, fit together to support the organization goals and culture. Reward decisions are consistent and pave the way to establish a level of trust with your workforce. Reward programs are flexible to support an organization and change. People are viewed as a competitive advantage to be cultivated and rewarded for results, which drives constant attraction and motivation in the workforce. And finally, organizations continuously improve their practices and programs to maximize the success of their people, in turn, which improves your workforce retention. So a total rewards philosophy forms the foundation regarding employee compensation and benefit programs. A good philosophy also will provide the framework for communicating the programs to employees. A simple internet search will bring up a variety of total reward philosophy examples that organizations have embraced to inform stakeholders about how total rewards programs are developed and how they are communicated. First, here's an example that I really like from the Port of Seattle. What I am drawn to is that it's very simple, yet fully defines the total rewards and principles and overarching principles. Note how sustainability and inclusiveness are addressed, if you can see it. It's right here. Second, here's an example from AbbVie, the pharmaceutical company. And again, I just found these examples online. AbbVie identifies its total rewards guiding principles as performance behaviors, differentiation, accountability, and transparency. AbbVie's total rewards philosophy also focuses on employee well-being. Well-being is a focus we are seeing gaining traction, especially after the pandemic. According to Microsoft's 2022 Workforce Trend Index and report, 53% of employees are more likely to prioritize health and wellness over work than before the pandemic. According to QTI's HR Trends Survey, 31% of organizations are planning or already have mental health education tools and resources for stress management. About 1 in 4 plan to increase their mental health program investment so that they will be able to increase employee satisfaction, improve retention, and increase employee engagement. So before I go on, have there been any questions that have come across?
I do not have any yet. So just a reminder that you guys are welcome to put your questions in the chat and we'd be happy to read those.
Okay. So I think this quote from Martin Luther King Jr. is most appropriate, especially since we observed Martin Luther King Jr. Day yesterday. The idea is you don't have to see the whole staircase, you just have to take the first step. So I know I've thrown a lot out there, but let's think about what employers are doing for 2023. I like this slide because it includes an inventory, but again, it's not holistic, it's not everything as we showed in a slide previously. Keep in mind that we like to call traditional benefits, such as health and retirement, competitive base pay, table stakes. Progressive rewards entail a more customized approach that will fit the story you're trying to drive. Determine what is meaningful for your employees. Do the alignment test that I talked about, outside in, inside out, bottom up, and top down. There's a significant value to thinking of rewards holistically among the disparate programs. So not surprisingly, employer offerings are shifting to meet the changing needs of the workforce. So money's important, but it's not the only factor. A bigger paycheck is the top reason that people quit their jobs. More workers than ever, as we know, are leaving their jobs, and they're feeling incredibly confident that they will find another one and fairly quickly. However, many workers are saying that what attracted them when choosing a role at a new organization was the opportunity to do more meaningful work, followed by increased responsibility. Even among workers who say they quit their job for increased pay, report that the primary reason they chose their new organization was the opportunity to do more meaningful work. Keep in mind that employee priorities shift over time, so what they need today may not be what they need in the future. So let me give you a few examples of what employers are doing to set themselves apart. So first, we have on-demand pay. There now is technology to support paying employees on demand, also known as earned wage access. Employers hire a third-party service to provide employees money they have earned ahead of the allotted paycheck distribution period. This is a practical benefit that can help employees survive financial hardships. Employees can avoid overdraft fees, late fees, or high interest and payday loans. The companies providing on-demand pay support services to employees are solving real-world problems with innovative solutions. Next, we have the living wage philosophy, which is an approach to consider adopting if you can afford it. This can be expensive. I fully stand behind that. But the living wage model is an alternative measure of basic needs. It's a market-based approach that draws upon geographically specific expenditure data related to a family's likely costs for food, childcare, health insurance, housing, transportation, and other basic necessities. The living wage draws on the cost elements and the rough effects of income and payroll taxes to determine the minimum employment earnings necessary to meet a family's basic needs while also maintaining self-sufficiency. Leading employers are making a commitment to paying a living wage, which may be higher than the minimum wage and market competitive wage levels. Patagonia is a famous example of such an employer who has made this kind of commitment. As you can see from their pay philosophy on this slide, they aim to pay at or above market for their jobs, with one exception. If market is ever below the living wage, then they will pay a living wage regardless of market. Third, we have total rewards communication, because per Plato, those who tell the stories rule society. The new world of total rewards will be defined based on how well organizations connect the dots emotionally for their employees. Another common way for employers to help with this total rewards narrative is through a documented total rewards philosophy. I provided the examples earlier from the Port of Seattle and AbbVie. Surprisingly, while 83% of employers have a documented philosophy, only 25% communicate this philosophy with employees. This is a significant gap. We know from research that a fair and transparent pay process actually boosts employee engagement more than additional pay. Let's imagine an iceberg. So what's above the surface of the water is what the employee is paid and what they are told. What is beneath the surface is the bigger and more interesting piece. It includes how and why pay decisions are made and the way they are made. If we give employees, let's envision a submarine to help them better understand these decisions, then we will see greater employee engagement levels, more so than simply giving employees more money. So total reward statements are an individualized document that communicates the overall value of an employee's financial reward, such as the base pay, incentives, benefits, and the less tangible benefits, such as, again, the work-life learning and development, flexible work relationship. So a total reward statement calculates, assembles, and visualizes the total value of an employee's total rewards package in addition to an employee's base pay. In fact, research shows that 95% of employees receiving total reward statements have a greater understanding of their pay and benefits, and 78% of employees receiving total reward statements are more likely to stay with their employer. Employers opt to use total reward statements as part of their effective and sustainable employee communication strategy. In fact, total rewards communication is essential for creating employee awareness and appreciation of their total rewards. So thinking about best practice for total reward statements, you should align with your total reward strategy, individualize, make convenient, customize, make useful, as well as make appealing. So as we begin 2023, some key questions that may be helpful to take back to your organizations include: how has the current economic situation transformed reward strategies and programs? How effective are current reward strategies, programs, and processes? And finally, how will reward strategies, programs, and processes change over the next 2 to 3 years? And so I ask you, what will you take away from our time together today? How will you optimize total rewards in 2023 to attract and retain the talent your organization needs for the future? And at this time, I'd like to open the floor to any questions.
Thank you, Rebecca. As she said, please feel free to take yourself off of mute and ask questions. I guess I can go first. So Rebecca, when you're talking about Patagonia and their living versus market wage and how sometimes they pay market, but if living is higher or whatever. So does that mean like an employee's pay can vary from year to year?
So likely an employee's pay would not vary from year to year. Since Patagonia is a global company, they're assessing the compensation related to that local market. So likely they are constantly ensuring that their living wage, that they have a living wage based on that current local market. And typically, while I guess it is possible that could go down, that typically doesn't happen.
Okay.
I have a quick question. So can you hear me? Okay.
Yep.
So the question I have pertains to technology or software solutions that exist for maybe onboarding small businesses who might not be able to, enact or fund the kinds of policies that we're talking about. Obviously, there are free options available, but as I see it, if I can just give a little bit of context to what my question is, which I'll circle back to. When we talk about inflation and we talk about how during the pandemic and immediately after it, I think you see, interestingly, like the wealth gap between the economic haves and have-nots increased. Like you see many of the largest corporations recording record profits in 2020 as well as 2021. So as a small business owner, I'm a digital marketing agency and working on growing a tech startup. But when I think about hiring, one of the problems is that I can sense that the market is changing, the cost of living is increasing, and that is there are a number of reasons as to why cost of living is increasing. But when you have record profits being made by corporations, it seems like it's kind of accelerating a system that, like you're describing, that employers have to pay to play. Like how can we so I guess my question is, I'm not sure if I clearly communicated my point, but my question is, is there like technology, is there software that is meant to, help, small businesses in terms of like crowdfunding resources or figuring out alternatives to make some of these programs fiscally possible when you're operating on a narrower margin?
I don't have an answer for that one. I don't know if this is a good one to open up to those who may have knowledge on this subject. So I'll just chime in here. So Samuel, this is a great question, and I don't know about technology solutions. What I do know is that there are resources and support services out there to help with onboarding and employing employees. I am not an expert in that area, but what I think I'm hearing from you is, that your margins are thin, and all of our margins are thin, and trying to make sure that we're making the best decisions for our workforce. And I think for you, some of it comes down to really thinking about having those employees that are well aligned with your mission and what you're trying to accomplish, and having them driven by the what you're trying to create. I don't know if anyone else would add anything.
Great. Thank you. That's helpful.
So Rebecca, we do have a question in chat. It said, market compensation has been a moving target. What suggestions do you have for benchmarking?
Oh my goodness. Oh gosh, I have so many suggestions for benchmarking. So there, yes, benchmarking is a moving target. We specialize in market benchmarking with QTI Consulting. So whether that's just, we call it market pricing analysis of one job, or an organization or company needs to study a multitude of jobs and then putting some sort of, let's say, structure pay ranges in place. That's what we often do for our clients. But there is information out there online, and that's typically where we go. I said you can, an internet search will produce compensation philosophies. It'll also produce market data. What I recommend is that you are very astute and careful when you're looking at that data, because it's often reported by employees themselves who may have an agenda or may not, may be less than totally honest with their pay. All of our compensation data that we use at QTI is third-party purchase resources. So we're not using any crowdsourced or individually reported data. There is one data set that I know is out there, and that is commonly through BLS. And the beauty about BLS is at least it is reported in a consistent and validated way, so that you can be fairly confident for that data. You can also look at it by industry as well as geography, which are so important. The one factor that you can't look at in that data is organization size. And we do know that organization size, especially at the top of an organization, let's say director level and higher, is a proxy measure for organization scope and scale and complexity. So that's important to keep in mind as well as you're thinking about evaluating compensation.
Rebecca, this is Diane. That was my question, but I have found that the surveys being published are so outdated. By the time you get the results, that they haven't been very useful.
Yeah, it's a great point. So there is no question that, well, there could be two things happening. So I would say there's no question that the surveys are lagging the market, but that's always the case. The other factor is we have not been seeing in the survey that the survey data moving as quickly as what we would anticipate. And I don't like to speculate on why that may be. I also did hear from one of our clients that a major compensation consultant out there told them that they anticipate that data will be lagging in the surveys until 2024, which just totally blew me away, because that's a year and a half from now, likely. So you can't, the best practices for overcoming that is reviewing actual pay increase and structure increase data. And that commonly is published for free out there by companies such as salary.com, pay scale. Particularly if you participate in the surveys, you can get that data. And then what you want to do is trend any of your market data forward to a common point in time based on those market trends. You also perhaps, thinking about looking at multiple data sources to sort of validate and find some central tendency in those data points can be all very, very helpful. And then, we may think about it this time, if we're evaluating market data and we're looking at, let's say, the 50th percentile or that median, which we commonly look at, not averages, which could be skewed by outliers, that perhaps we need to think about, well, that's the 50th percentile, but maybe we need to be a little bit more competitive. Maybe we look to the 55th percentile or the 60th percentile, particularly during these sort of dynamic
Those are all
times in
great
the
suggestions.
marketplace.
Thank you.
All right, what other questions do you guys have today? Well, Rebecca, why don't we go to this
I don't have any additional questions, but I want to thank you.
Yes, I
thank
can.
Yeah.
Thank you.
Well, no, thank you. Thank you everyone for your time today, and especially the Middleton Chamber for reaching out to us. I've included my contact information in case you have any follow-up questions. We're happy to answer them. We also will be sending, I believe, Kristen, you'll be sending the slides after our session today. So we wish you all the best in 2023.
Thank you, Rebecca. So I just want to shout out again, thank you, Rebecca, and for Carrie for being with us today and sharing all your knowledge in this area. We certainly appreciate it. And thank you to all of you for attending. If your role within your organization is employee and organizational development, we encourage you to check out all the other on-track sessions we'll be having this year. I think I have 9 total scheduled, so like almost 1 per month coming up. So on the screen, a few upcoming events. Today is the day to buy your tickets to Substantial Socialize. We would love to have you guys join us for that. And then also shout out to Upper Iowa University. Thank you, Valerie and Tom, for supporting this program. We appreciate your support of the chamber. Rebecca mentioned I will send out the recording, a copy of the slides, and we'll see you guys hopefully at an event very soon. We can stay on for a few more minutes if anyone has any additional questions, but also wanted to give you a little bit time back into your day. So thank you, everyone.